Well, welcome, everyone. Are we all set? Sorry, I didn't ask you first. Welcome, everyone, to the August 1st, 2023 Ogden City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present. At this time, I'd like to welcome Vice Chair Ritchie to conduct the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you all. At this time, are there any acknowledgements from the council?
I think I just quickly again acknowledge the Jay and his team, and the rodeo this year was fantastic and just all the way around. I know there was a lot of time and effort put into that, and the nights I was able to attend, it was just special. So thank you, Jay, and your team for getting it all done.
Well, there's a lot of public safety there too.
That is true. Thank you to those guys too, for sure.
You bet. Any other acknowledgements?
Got one.
Please.
Just want to recognize Ed Bridge and his team for hosting the first annual Sandlot softball tournament. That's a state recreation all-star tournament that we started a program that competes at the statewide level, and this year was the first year that our program was ready to host the tournament. So the state championship tournament will be next month, but it was a really successful event and took a lot of work, but appreciate all the work everybody did to help us do that.
Great. Any others? Well, I was trying to look up the information here really quickly, but I wanted to acknowledge that we have a ribbon cutting this week for the new OGX, which I'm really excited about. And once I find the information, I'll tell you more about it. It's tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, it's Wednesday already. Sorry, I'm not on my days. Yeah, so it's tomorrow. So that is super exciting. Really excited to see that come to fruition, all the great work that made that happen.
Madam Chair, can I just add to?
Please.
The FTA director is flying in for this,
Oh,
and they
right.
never do that. So this is an enormous deal for Ogden and for the state.
Yeah, great investment in our community. I'm so excited to write it, for sure. Well, we have some other wonderful recognitions this evening. We're going to start with Captain Christopher Berry, the Utah Paramedic of the Year, and Councilmember Nadolski is going to read that recognition.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Captain Barry is joined tonight by his wife Angie and his daughter Natalie. Thank you for being by his side tonight and always. The Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize Captain Christopher Berry for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. Captain Christopher Berry was recently honored as the Paramedic of the Year by the State of Utah Bureau of Emergency Medical Services and Preparedness. This esteemed recognition is a testament to Captain Berry's exceptional skills, unwavering commitment, and dedication to providing emergency medical care to our community. Throughout his tenure with the Ogden Fire Department, Captain Berry has consistently gone above and beyond the call of duty, providing the highest quality of care to countless individuals in their times of need. He has served our community with class, integrity, and has consistently demonstrated the utmost levels of professionalism, compassion, and leadership. His exemplary actions have not only saved lives, but also earned him the profound respect of both the community and his colleagues. We are grateful for Captain Perry's influence in our community. His vision and work ethic have played a significant role in the growth of the Ogden Fire Department, contributing to the safety and well-being of our city. We are confident that he will continue to make a profound difference in the lives of those he serves. And we present this to Captain Berry on the first day of August 2023, and we invite your wife and your daughter up as well.
Congratulations. You can start over there if you'd like. Thank you so much. You can come back this way now if you'd like to. Would you like to?
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations.
My dad's,
If you'd like, we'll take your picture here, and then you can step to the podium, and if you'd like to say anything.
Can I still come over?
Yep.
Okay, looking here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That should be good.
Oh, yeah. Do you all want to come up too, please?
Chiefs and captains,
Please,
yeah.
anyone that would like to join. Please do. Sure. Great, thank you. And Captain, if you'd like to make a statement, you're welcome.
I don't really like the spotlight, so I'm sweating like a sinner in church.
Join the club.
Yeah. Welcome.
I've spent a lot of years as a paramedic and a firefighter, and so I value my profession, and I love what I do, serving the community. This nomination that was written came from Chief Willis, and she was very, very generous in what she wrote for me. And I would like to just give you a little background on this award and the nomination that she wrote for me. This was from an incident from February of last year, a young man who was injured in the train yard, who actually managed to live for 2 days after injuries that he probably should have died from. We ended up reaching out to his family and made a connection between a person that worked in the train yard and sat with this young man for 10 minutes waiting for us to arrive, who never knew the outcome of this young man, and the family who had a lot of questions. And I formed a friendship with that young man's parents and allowed them to meet this person from the train yard, and they spent several hours becoming friends themselves. When COVID hit, we lost a lot of humanity in the world. We learned to distrust a lot of people. And last year during this incident, I recognized an opportunity that we needed to make some human connections. People needed closure in a time of sadness. And I saw an opportunity and I took advantage of that, and I reached out to those families. Partly for my own benefit as well. I needed some closure for this call. It was very traumatic for all of us involved. And I just wanted to say that there are good people for Ogden Fire Department, the police department, Public Works, everybody in this city do good things every single day. And it's important that you as a council know that. We appreciate your support. And we look forward to having years of support from you guys. But good people do good things every single day, and this is just one example of that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I can't imagine. I would be feeling probably like you are right now if I was in any of your everyday situations. So I appreciate your work so much. Thank you. Any other comments from the council or the mayor?
Just say, if you look behind you, your whole leadership team is 100% behind this, as are we. So congratulations, and this is a great honor, and I hope you feel that. And I know you don't like it. Most people don't want it, but it's a really cool thing that your whole leadership team would show up and celebrate this with you. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you will continue to do. And I hope you give yourself an opportunity to let that marinate a little bit.
I wasn't going to say anything else, but the comments that you made is a testament to your character. The fact that you chose your moment to honor and bring attention to others. It's a sign of a true servant leader. So thanks for being that kind of a man.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for your service. And thank you all, leadership team, for bringing it to our attention. Thank you. Okay. Up next, we have a joint proclamation declaring August 1st to 7th, 2023 as Pride Week in Ogden City. And Councilmember White will read that.
Thanks, Chair. I'm always honored to be able to read this. Just, you know, when I first ran for council, I didn't think that there was anybody that would accept me on this dais, and I've just really appreciated the support that not just this group gives the LGBTQ plus members in our community, but the support that the mayor and administration does too. So with that, I'm very proud to declare August 1st to the 7th, 2023, Pride Week in Ogden City. Whereas Ogden City is a vibrant and diverse community that celebrates and values the contributions and experiences of all its residents. Our city remains steadfast in its commitment to fostering a culture of inclusivity, acceptance, and respect for all individuals. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, and other LGBTQ+ community is an integral part of our diverse society, enriching our culture, economic, and social landscape. The invaluable contributions the LGBTQ+ community brings to Ogden significantly contributes to the betterment of our community. And whereas the origins of Pride celebrations can be traced back to the Stonewall riots in June of 1969, where LGBTQ+ individuals courageously stood up against discrimination and violence, sparking a pivotal moment in the fight for LGBTQ+ rights. Despite significant progress, members of the LGBTQ+ community continue to endure discrimination and violence. And whereas Pride Week is an opportunity to acknowledge the history, struggles, and achievements of the LGBTQ+ community, as well as to promote acceptance, equality, and exclusivity for all individuals, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And whereas since its establishment in 2014, Ogden Pride has supported the LGBTQ+ community by working to build and strengthen inclusivity. Through its inclusive events, educational campaigns, and valuable services, Ogden Pride has touched countless lives, defending and protecting basic human rights such as life, liberty, and freedom from violence and intimidation. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim August 1st through the 7th, 2023, Pride Week in Ogden City. We encourage residents, schools, businesses, and community groups to take advantage of Ogden Pride Week as a valuable opportunity to engage in learning, listening, and demonstrating love. We appreciate the significant efforts of Ogden Pride, including organizing and administrating the Ogden Pride Festival, which is now entering its 9th year. This year's festival will take place August 4th through the 6th at the Ogden Amphitheater. I proclaim that we adopt this proclamation.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember White and a second by Councilmember Blair to adopt this proclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, well, thank you. Thank you.
I'll shake your hand.
We certainly can't miss you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Miss Billy's.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Guys and gals, I should just.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. Yeah, we can get a photo with all of you, and then you can step to the podium if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do a photo.
Of course.
Show us in front of us.
Should we do over there?
Come this way.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to move a little closer. So I'm not too short for that side.
Okay, perfect. Okay, looking here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, please step up to the podium and tell us about all the wonderful events that are happening. Hopefully you noticed we have Ogden lit up with some pride colors
I
around the
love it.
city up there on the display.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and council members and amazing representatives of our city, our very diverse city. Oh, I should warn you, I'm a crier.
That's okay.
I stood here 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we made a proclamation. 5 years ago, a lot has changed. In 2019, we had about 5,000 in attendance at the festival. This year, we're looking at 8,000, and we want to grow because we represent a large group of Ogden. Ogden Pride doesn't mean just the LGBTQ community. It means people of color. It means our marginalized community members. It means Ogden can stand proud and embrace diversity, something that we all absolutely need in our lives. And just like humanity was lost in 2020, the LGBTQ community has also been attacked continuously, especially this year. Across the country, over 750 bills were entered into debate about who I am. Debate about how we live and how we are able to receive care. And our most marginalized community members are youth. We protect youth because we give them a safe space to be themselves. We don't question their identity. We don't question their sexuality. We just say we have a space that you can be whoever you are, whoever you want to be, and whoever you are going to become. That's a value that we should embrace as a city. And with all of the festival things that we have this week coming up, it has been a great pleasure to serve and be a leader of an organization that in Utah tends to be looked down on. 9 years in Ogden is just a fraction of the time that the civil rights started for the LGBTQ plus community. But we're not going anywhere, and we continue to build and thrive and rely on our relationships with our city officials and our safety officials. And it has been a wonderful, wonderful journey to work and build that, especially with our Ogden Arts group. So we do welcome and invite you all to join us this weekend as we celebrate for the very first time 3 days in a row at the Ogden Amphitheater. Starting on Friday, we have our youth talent show. Give them a space for safety so that they can showcase who they are, so that we can help them build to be better adults. Give them a space to be recognized. So we're giving them the stage. We invite you to come and watch and support them as you get to see just a glimpse of what makes them proud as young adults. And then after the show is over, we're going to kick you all out. And we have a parent corral that you can join and socialize with our adults just outside the amphitheater. But we're going to give the kids their own space and have a pride dance. So we've hired a DJ so they can have that space. And that event is only possible because we received the Ogden City Art Grant. So thank you for that. Our next evening is a fundraiser because it takes money, we know, to run things. It takes a lot of money to feed kids. It takes a lot of money to take them skating that we do. And it takes a lot of money to make sure that we have the services and resources that they need. We do not require our youth to pay a single penny in order to participate with our events. So we pay for everything that we do for our youth. So Saturday is a concert, and it starts our doors are at 4, it starts at 5. We have 2 amazing local bands, Shecock with a Vengeance and Ginger and the Gents. They'll be entertaining us. And then we're going to close the evening with an amazing and energetic drag show, because drag is valid. Drag is a part of the LGBTQ community and history. It was drag queens and trans women who stood up and threw those first, not just stones, but shot glasses. So we're going to be closing the evening with a wonderful, wonderful drag show. And all those proceeds will help us sustain our programs for the evening. So you can buy tickets on ogdenpride.org. And then Sunday is our 9th annual Ogden Pride Festival with the theme, The Future is Inclusive. It's a beacon of light to tell people that we are here and that we all belong, and that yes, while we walk and we climb and we reach the peaks of mountains, we will win. And even though our lives are legislated daily, we still will win. And so join us on the festival grounds from 11 to 8 with 2 stages of wonderful entertainment, over 150 vendors, including food vendors, arts and crafts, merchants, and we are bringing back our kids zone with 6 activities and some amazing stuff. It is our largest festival to date. And it is a wonderful, wonderful honor to be a part of that and to lead my amazing board. So thank you again for this wonderful recognition, not just for us, but this is for Ogden. Ogden Pride is strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great. Okay. Next up, we have a request to be on the agenda from Visit Ogden, and we have Sarah Tolliver, the president and CEO of Visit Ogden, along with someone else you might like to introduce.
I will
if you don't
introduce
mind.
her,
Great,
yes.
welcome.
Thank you for having us. Those are two incredibly powerful recognitions to follow. I'm very emotional after listening, so I apologize. But part of why we wanted to be here is because obviously listening to, we all know the incredible public safety teams that we have here in the city and the community and the incredible work that so many of our organizations are doing. But we wanted to give a recognition of our own to acknowledge some of the Ogden City team that's been so beneficial in helping us do our work and the impact on the community that we're able to have in a very, very different way. And you know, I think we all recognize over and over again that the secret sauce of our community is the collaboration and the way that we all work together. And this is just a great opportunity for us to highlight one of those projects that we were able to work on, and we don't do that enough with your team. So we want to try to be better at recognizing some of those collaborations and opportunities that come our way. Triple Crown Sports is what we wanted to talk about tonight. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background before I turn the time over to Millie. Triple Crown was an event that came our way during COVID because many of the destinations that they were operating in had basically said that they couldn't host their events during that time frame. They had closed their parks and weren't allowing any of those recreation opportunities to happen. So we were able to make a connection with them, and even though we are not a community that boasts 6 or 8 or 12 ball fields in one area, we were able to sample together a number of fields for use that required collaboration from the Ogden City team, the Weber County team, our school districts, our other cities within the county. I mean, it really was a true community effort to piece this together. And frankly, we thought that once COVID was over, and is it ever really over? I'm not sure, but that once it's over, it's done. Once other communities opened back up, that we would potentially lose that business back again to these facilities that had the ability to host them in one complex. And because of the power of this community and the welcome they get when they come here and all of these people who come to the same table to work together, we've now been able to secure these events for, we just hosted Triple Crown Softball for the 2nd year and introduced a new event, Triple Crown Baseball, this year, and we have multi-year contracts with each of these events. So we wanted to publicly give our appreciation to the Ogden City team for helping us execute these incredibly successful events. This is Millie Stewart. She's Visit Ogden's Director of Sales and the one responsible for working with your teams to bring these events to life. And we just wanted to present a few of the facts and figures of the impact on our community that these events left. Thank you.
And I love seeing them all around town. Everywhere I went, I saw baseball players or softball players.
We'll find out. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and excited to share a little bit about what I do and the great people that I get to work with in our community. You know, sports tourism is an economic engine, and it provides so many opportunities for local residents to participate in athletic events that they may not have otherwise had the opportunity to participate in. You know, it improves fields and facilities, and it really rallies us together. I want to see if it will play. Yeah. We do have a video, so we'll see if it will play for us just to showcase the event in our community.
Two,
Have the Jeopardy music.
3. Yeah, show it. Brandon.
We didn't give you
There's a.
No one would give you a
No stress, no stress. You're doing just fine.
Hard pass. It's okay.
There's a new town for the Triple Crown Showdown, where after you slide, you'll ride or glide. Close game scores, hometown stores, mountain shores, and more. Play hard. Play harder. Play harder still. Eat, sleep, repeat, then maybe just chill. Athletes from around the world have earned titles here for years. Come earn yours. Ogden, Utah would like to say thank you to Triple Crown Sports for calling this place the new home of the Fast Pitch World Series. While we're at it, let us add that you are welcome.
Very nice.
Perfect. So, as Sarah mentioned, the reason why we can have these events is because of partners like Ogden City and Ogden City Parks and Recreation. We really wanted to come here to recognize the work of Ed Bridge and Monty Stewart and their teams and all that they do to make these events happen. I received accolades from numerous players and coaches and those that are involved in putting on the tournament in regards to their work, from field quality to bathrooms to concessions and overall staffing and how they handled and operated with these children that had the opportunity to play. So we want to give a huge shout out to them. I work with other destinations throughout the country, and not everyone is as fortunate as we are to have such a good relationship with our Parks and Recreation Department. So huge thank you to them for their help and participation. Same with the special events team. They put up those banners, which really welcomes the kids to our community that are down 25th Street that can see it, and they can really feel that we're excited to have them here in our community. Triple Crown is a unique organization in that they also give back. Last year was our first year with them, and they improved some of our fields. They provided fencing and mounds, and they're continuing to propel us forward in terms of sports tourism and local recreation use. When we have these groups that come in and they provide these positive things for the event, it stays here, and then our locals get to take advantage of those opportunities that are now in place. A big part of sports tourism is that economic impact. Sports tourism is the fastest growing segment of tourism, and particularly female sports provides the highest economic impact. Last year was our first year with the Fast Pitch World Series. They had 55 teams coming in at $2.9 million in economic impact. In 2023, we saw 92 teams. We're still working on gathering some of the final pickup reports, but we're estimating about $4.4 million in economic impact. This is the team staying locally, they're dining locally, they're taking advantage of the recreational opportunities that we have. They're going to the Solomon Center, the Megaplex. They're really investing in our community in so many different ways. The Best of the West finale was the first year baseball event, and they had 46 teams and an estimated $1.3 million in economic impact. Because of our partnership with Triple Crown, we're continuing to see more groups that are interested in us as a destination for recreational tourism, for youth sports, for these groups that want to come in and play. I know Ben did speak to D1 prospects, but Ed Bridge and his team have done a fantastic job in partnering with them. We've hosted 3 events with them collectively this year that estimates to be $602,000 in economic impact. One of which I particularly want to highlight, which is the high school all-star game. It was the first female high school all-star game in the state of Utah for softball. So for us to be able to propel that forward and give these young female athletes a place to play and showcase their skills and abilities is incredible. We've also had other groups that have provided some tourism aspects that we haven't necessarily been directly involved in, but wanted to recognize. The 5-Tool World Series had an economic impact of $107,000, and the Utah Baseball High School All-Star Game with an estimated economic impact of $62,000. These groups come in and they get to experience so many different things. One thing I didn't touch on Triple Crown is, we had them at Lindquist Field for the baseball event, and they had to do an opening registration there, and it gave the kids an opportunity to play on a really high-level field that they otherwise wouldn't have had. With softball, they had an opportunity to play the championship game at Weber State University. The softball event this year was 16 and 18-year-old girls, and for them to get a taste of that college field feeling was incredible, and also showcases our university in a really unique way. When we talk about economic impact, there's hotel rooms, heads and beds. There's the direct spend in terms of renting fields and facilities and concessions. But there's also all these other aspects that come into place. Local transportation, food and beverage, entertainment, the supply chain effect, the sales tax, the wages, the jobs. It's all a ripple effect. And that's really our goal, is to help propel and bring these events in that provide that positive economic boost, and it gives our locals those opportunities to compete that they may not have otherwise had. A few facts I wanted to share. I have the opportunity to go to a number of different sports tourism conferences where I meet with different groups. Baseball and softball is a huge portion of that right now. Over 34% of these attendees are usually baseball and softball organizations. And only 14% of registered destinations represent cities or field complexes that have 8 or more fields in one location. With that being said, I just really want to thank you for your efforts with the 4th Street Ballpark and what could potentially be happening there. You know, we're continuing to see more and more groups who are interested in utilizing our space, and the more we can invest for our locals to use, the more groups we can bring in, and it just elevates us all collectively. So really want to thank you for those opportunities, and are looking forward to continuing to see expansion for recreation in Ogden. With that being said, I also wanted to highlight a few other groups that we've had direct interest with. We had Prospect Fire Baseball come out for a site visit. They are looking at adding 2 events to us next year, as well as a showcase event. With them, we've had the Baseball Players Association, the Softball Player Association, Ripken Baseball, Perfect Game, Prep Baseball Report, USSSA, and USA Softball all express interest in coming here and hosting tournaments. And it's because of partnerships like we have with Ogden City and Ogden City Parks and Recreation that allow us to work with these groups and host great events. So again, just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. We really appreciate the collective collaboration and partnership and all that we get to do from a tourism aspect and from a local recreational use aspect.
Well, thank you. Any comments or questions from council?
I just have really one quick question. Do you survey these teams, or so obviously we're doing a great job. What could we be doing better? What do you think these teams want?
Yeah, absolutely. We do survey the teams. You know, one thing that would help in a significant way is having more fields in one location. It helps from a staffing perspective. It helps parents not have to drive around from any fields. You know, if there's multiple age groups playing, it centralizes them. And it also helps Ogden City staffing. You know, then Monty and Ed aren't having to send and disperse staff throughout the area. Of course, more lodging is always needed as well. But, you know, overall, we're hearing really good feedback about Ogden and what it has to offer. You know, we've heard it being considered like a hidden gem. You know, they come off the freeway and they're so impressed to see our collective downtown and all the different activities they have to highlight. So we do have some survey results that we've received from baseball, and I'll be happy to share some of those with you if you're curious. Yeah.
So at the Sandlot tournament this weekend, so I had one daughter at 4th Street and one daughter at Goodyear Park, and it was hard to go back and forth for sure. So I relate with that. But so we had teams from all over the state here, and just talking anecdotally with parents and stuff, people, you know how we have that reputation in the state but not outside the state? A lot of parents and players were like, we had no idea how cool Ogden was. We haven't had a reason to come here until now, and it's opening our eyes as to what this town is. And that was really fun to see. But I think the point you didn't hit on, which is really important for me and how much I love youth recreation, is that one of the biggest challenges is making these kinds of opportunities available to our kids. Mm-hmm. You know, not just my daughters, I mean all of our kids. And it comes at such expense, and that's what the Untamed program short circuits that and gives our kids an opportunity to compete at a higher level. And proudly, we had our 14U team took 2nd place in Sandlot, and that was a huge accomplishment for a program we just started 3 years ago. But these events, if we can get these world-class events in Ogden, and we can create a world-class program for our kids, it gives our kids an opportunity to participate in these events locally without having to travel and spend families' money elsewhere. And not only that, it brings those other families to come spend money here. So that kind of revenue can help create hopefully the facilities, but also the tournaments, and help fuel and fund some of those programs for our own kids. And then they get to use those facilities every time in between. So I love the vision that you have, and hope that we can help participate in catalyzing more of it, because I just think it's so good for our own families and our own kids.
Thank you. Absolutely. That's probably my favorite part about my job, is getting to have these local Utah teams participate in high class level events that they may have not otherwise had the opportunity to. And groups like Triple Crown are really great to work with us. You know, there were a number of teams that got free entries that lived in Utah that got to play in the tournament for free, and then they didn't have to travel. It was a huge savings to the parents, and it gave them that opportunity that they may not have otherwise had. So thank you.
Ed told me a story. I'll share it with you. One of the teams, after they played that day, they went out to eat. I think it was out to eat, and they started talking to somebody at the restaurant, talking to them. The guy at the restaurant was asking them where they're from, what they're doing here, blah blah blah. They said, "Yeah, we're playing softball. We got games tomorrow." Blah blah. And the restaurant employees went to the game and supported him. So then that meant a lot to that team. But then the other team's like, you just work here? And they're like, yeah, we work here. We met them last night. We want to come out and support them. So I truly appreciate everything that you and your team do to bring these type of events here. I appreciate everything that Ed and his team does to make sure that when they come here, that everything's world class and top notch. But I also think it would be sad if we didn't recognize the residents here that truly embrace what we're trying to do and embrace those visitors that are coming here and want to make this a wonderful experience. And so I applaud. They didn't tell me who it was, but I applaud our residents also for rolling out a red carpet and making this truly a memorable experience for everybody. So, but thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I appreciate you coming to us and telling us all about it because, we do see people in the community, and sometimes if we don't know these events are happening, we don't remember how awesome Ogden is and how awesome your team is and our teams and helping to partner as well. And I really, really love that the first championship female game happened here. That's really awesome for the state.
Incredible.
So kudos to you all.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
So I loved Bart's story because it's such an Ogden story, right? So thanks for sharing. It reminded me of one that I think you'll enjoy too. So we're sitting in the game at Serge Simmons, and there's the sound of Harleys is coming, and we're like, oh man, and it's like a dull roar in the distance, and it just gets closer and closer, and then it's deafening. It's in the parking lot, and you can see the crowd. They're like, oh my gosh, right? Who's coming to the game? Such an Ogden moment in some people's eyes. And it ended up being this big crowd of riders, and they were sober riders, and they had their patches on their back. And they came up and were the biggest cheering section for our own team. They were there for the pitcher that was pitching for Untamed. And they were like the most tender, like cuddly bear guys ever. It was hilarious. But it was such an Ogden moment again, too. And you can see the whole crowd just go, oh, and they, no one expected it, but that's like such an Ogden moment. That's just who we are, like the servers that Bart shared too. Just an amazing community. It was an awesome experience.
That is incredible. It's always amazing to me how many people are so willing to come and celebrate and really highlight what we have. So thank you for sharing. I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Up next, well, if this amendment passes, we won't call it the common consent anymore, right, Janine? It'll just be the consent agenda. Would anyone like to propose a motion on that?
Chair, I would like to make a motion.
Please.
If it's the last time we're calling it common consent.
Yeah, you got it.
I've been calling it the consent agenda for a little while anyway, but I would make a motion that we adopt the quotes common unquote consent agenda by amendments to the rules and norms.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt the common consent, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Dadalski.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. So let's see, the first person that calls it the common consent, they have to put it like $1 in the jar or something. Yeah. Okay, up next we have public hearings where we're going to welcome Barton Brierley, the planning manager, to talk with us about 2 public hearings.
Okay, good evening, Chair Chaburka. Now the real highlight of the evening, everything that you've just been waiting for is city boundary adjustments. So we have 2 tonight. The first one is an adjustment with Marriott-Slaterville, and this was a request from the Worryville School District to adjust this boundary to include all of their property in Marriott-Slaterville. The 2 properties that are in Ogden are the ones, the bottom highlighted in magenta, and they are currently both have built school facilities. One's the Weber Innovation Center and one's the Two Rivers High School and Adult Education Facility, and Weber School District owns a vacant property right between those 2 that is in Marriott-Slaterville. They would like the entire complex to be in Marriott-Slaterville. All the utilities are served by Marriott-Slaterville. So they've requested, and Marriott-Slaterville has requested that these be moved to Marriott-Slaterville. So this is the Weber Innovation Center and the Two Rivers School. Council had a couple of questions on this. One is, what are the tax increment implications. So both properties are currently tax exempt, and Marriott-Slaterville does not collect property taxes. Ogden does not provide utility services of property. I did finally get out of our legal department that we could possibly do an interlocal agreement with Marriott-Slaterville to share revenues, but it wouldn't be effective unless, first both cities agreed, and second, if they were changed from exempt to non-exempt, and Marriott-Slaterville started collecting property taxes because it can't share any revenue that they aren't collecting. So it is possible, though even if you did it now, it wouldn't have any effect. The other question you had was about the storm drain line. There is a storm drain that goes from this property to 12th Street, and that 12th Street drain goes to the Ogden Nature Center property. And looking at it a little bit more, the entire line doesn't need to be abandoned, just the connection from the facility to 12th Street would have to be rerouted. So that existing storm drain line that goes to the Nature Center would stay there. They would still get storm drain from 12th Street. So it's a pretty minor thing. We did try to reach out to the Nature Center. We talked to the biologist there, but didn't get a real clear answer whether they use any of that water. But it would be a pretty small impact because the storm drain line would continue to be there and still get drainage from 12th Street. So the Planning Commission had taken this up and made a recommendation that you approve the boundary adjustment. That concludes the report.
Any questions for Barton or comments? I'm seeing none, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this particular item. It would just be about this item alone. You can step to the podium and you have 3 minutes to speak, and please state your name for the record. And if you're on the Zoom meeting online, you can raise your hand. Come on up.
Good evening, Teresa Bramwell. I just have a question. This is an adult education high school, the Two Rivers High School. So my question is, if it's moved from Ogden City into Marriott-Slaterville, will Ogden City then be deficient an adult high school education center that they're required to have or that they should have? So would there be any implications on Ogden City to create a new location for that type of a facility if they abandon this one to a Marriott-Slaterville? That's my only question. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other comments? Not seeing, I don't see any hands raised online. We do have one telephone number though. If you're on the telephone, you would need to hit *9. Got it the first try. That will raise your hand.
Seeing none, Chair, I would make a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie, a second by Councilmember Heyer to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Any other comments or questions? I think I can answer Teresa's. I believe, and Barton, maybe you can clarify, I think that school will still be there, and that's in Weber School District. So Ogden School District has its own adult education program, but then Weber District has that one, and as far as I know, it's going to remain. So it's still available to all the Weber County constituents.
Right. It doesn't change the school district boundary, so
Yeah.
it would serve the same people it serves today.
Yeah. It gets confusing because Ogden City School District is basically the same boundaries as Ogden City, so people get confused. Any other comments or questions?
Chair, I'd make a motion concerning proposed ordinance 2023-43 that we adopt that ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, a second by Councilmember Nadolski to adopt ordinance 2023-43. Is there any other discussion on that item?
I'd just like to mention, all the things that Barton brought forward, I think the questions were all valid that we asked along the way. Whereas it's, it's not practical to even consider worrying about this thing, since it wouldn't happen for at least 50 years anyway, probably. So seems appropriate that we follow through with this.
Great. Any other discussion? Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you.
Chair, I just want to make a comment. Thank you
Please.
for bringing that question. That was a really good question. So
That
thank you.
was a good question. And then I think also, I appreciate you following up with the interlocal agreement idea too, because that might be something we'd pursue if they do start redeveloping it or something later. Or if they start taking property taxes. Great. Up next, our next boundary adjustment.
Okay, so this is a different boundary adjustment with South Ogden. This is a request to move the boundary from the south line of Country Hills Drive to the center line. This was requested by South Ogden City. So it's on Country Hills Drive, and the area highlighted in red is where it would be changed. That's currently in Ogden would move to South Ogden. And here's a aerial photo that shows the area. So just move from the south right-of-way line to the center line of the street. The reason this is requested is South Ogden had approved a apartment building on the property line there, and they have an access that would come out onto Country Hills Drive. The developer failed to get a permit from Ogden City for that access, and our engineering was very concerned about site visibility and liability of the access, and also the proximity of the building to the street. And so just the two cities' staff talked about how to resolve the situation. The city staffs suggested that we just move the boundary to the center line of the street, which is the same as it is and the rest of the stretch here along Country Hills Drive, and then basically all the permits would be going through South Ogden. So here's just the plat, and this was taken to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the proposed boundary adjustment.
Any questions?
Chair, I do kind of have a question that this sort of brings up. Tell me if I'm wrong, and tell me that I am wrong. I hope you are able to tell me this, but it sounds a little bit like it was a situation that was unsafe that Ogden City was not comfortable with, and therefore it was sort of a hot potato kind of a thing. But we didn't create the problem; they did. So it's your hot potato, but we still got the same unsafe circumstance. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd say safety is always an opinion.
Mhm.
You know, opinion of our engineers is it's not safe, and opinion of the South Ogden engineers is it was okay.
Okay. I don't know what to say. Seems like there's ought to be a better way to deal with it, but if it's not, then not without taking out of the building or
Just push it over. Just shove it over.
yeah. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was as I, ascertained. So
Great. Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and open up this item to a public hearing. For this item alone, you're welcome to step up to the podium, state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak, and if you're online on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand. Welcome.
All right, Travis Pate. I'd like to just obviously, in conjunction with the fast pitch and some of those other things, the partnerships that are existing. I think there's some great partnerships. Obviously, when Ogden City put Skyline Drive through into South Ogden, and then the realignment of 6300 South, it's no longer this bear of a intersection right there across Highway 89. I think the same thing. So if there is possibility that we just simply ask our engineering or their engineering to just team up with, say, are there other future alignments that might be brought into consideration? We have the whole of Highway 89 all the way through Davis County, that each one of those municipalities had to realign and do frontage roads in order to accommodate a new now interstate, almost Interstate 89 instead of Highway 89, or freeway, I guess, Freeway 89. And so my strong take is if it's not necessarily deferring guilt or responsibility or anything else, the center line essentially is obviously a very practical thing. It's on 36th Street. It's not the length of Country Hills Drive, because Country Hills Drive east of this project is 100% Ogden City. Country Hills Drive west of this project is 100% South Ogden City. So it's not a shared thing. It's now just this section. And so I think sometimes there's just been some misstatements made along that line, but I think the center line is a very practical and reasonable thing. But then also, if it can go to WACOG or somebody else that says, hey, what are some alignments that we can have that if there is the potential for risk or liability, that we simply say, how do we continue these partnerships, such as what we've seen, like I said, Skyline Drive into South Ogden and 6300, you can just go on either side and you go, 6300, oh, it's on the other side. So you go back to Skyline, go over 6300 back through. But rather than just getting T-boned across the interstate, I think the same thing. So possibly to answer Councilmember Heyer's question is that it's not a done thing, other than just saying, hey, let's look at other partnerships. Let's look if there's any other possibility of alignments, because 900 just dead ends into the condominiums. Can 900 be pushed down to the cul-de-sac that's just immediately west of there, which lines up to Gramercy Avenue, which then lines up to Grandview Acres, which then we have a new alignment. So should we then take advantage and not build housing at Grandview Acres, we can say, oh, how many more softball fields can we put up there that are right next to Weber State, so Weber State can land bigger projects? I look right now back to the World Cup archery, tremendous support to Ogden City, and it was an Olympic qualifier right here in Ogden. And yet, because we had the resources, and so I allowed the work of Ogden City Parks and Recreation, I allowed the work that's being done. But I think the same thing is, let's look long-term and say, okay, Grandview Acres, oh, look, softball, we don't have room for you, but we have a lot of condos and apartments and townhomes you could have lived in, or you can vacation rental by owner these, but you can't play ball there. So I'm saying that the team effort has to be consistent, and I would say just pursue this with the chance of just some realignments through WACOG.
Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing anything else online either. Would anybody like to close the public hearing?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Heyer, second from Councilmember Blair to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Any other discussion or comments or questions? Alrighty.
Seeing none, I will make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2023-44.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, a second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-44. And this is also a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Dodowski.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you all. Hopefully we're done with boundary adjustments for a while. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun thing to do. Okay, up next, we are going to invite Monty Stewart, our Parks Manager and Public Services, to talk with us about a proposed amendment regarding camping and related activities on public property. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Chaburka and the council. Thanks for letting me come tonight. So I'm here on behalf of the administration to propose an ordinance revision to amend section 7-2-15 of the Ogden Municipal Code. This pertains to camping and related activities, including the storage of personal items on public property. As you all know, the council reviewed the proposed amendments on July 11th in the work session. As mandated by recent state legislation, in order for the city to receive homeless shelter mitigation restricted account funds, cities must enforce an ordinance related to camping. Cities must enforce this ordinance that prohibits camping on public property. Prohibitions are common in cities where unauthorized camping leads to public spaces being rendered really unusable for a time for their intended use. Unauthorized camping and storage of personal items on public property, they can cause unsanitary conditions, health risks to campers themselves and the surrounding community, environmental damage, fire hazards, criminal activity, and conflict with residents and businesses, and obstruct pedestrian and vehicular traffic. This can place the public in danger. Proposed amendments will create a more specific definition of camping and will be easier to enforce. Amendments to the ordinance also clarify that the ordinance won't be, it won't, in times when the shelters are full, the police chief can say, hey, we're not going to enforce this through notification to his officers. We're asking tonight the council to adopt the proposed amendments that will give staff an additional tool to help combat the problems associated with unauthorized camping in our public spaces. These activities are costly to clean up, they're difficult to enforce, and negatively impact all the residents of Ogden City. That was short and sweet, right?
I just have a follow-up question. I just wanted to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So the way that the new ordinance is written, that is specifically required to receive the funds, or is it just in general, or?
Yeah, so I think Mara kind of touched on it before. The city's received about, I think it was maybe 1.7 million, I think is what she said in the work session of these homeless mitigation funds. And yeah, recent state legislation requires that the city has to have a camping ordinance and enforce it.
But this specific language, or just one in particular?
I think just one in general. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Just for clarification, this is only selectively enforced if the homeless shelters are full.
So no, so if the homeless shelters are full, then they wouldn't enforce.
Well, that's
then
what I
they
mean.
wouldn't.
It's selectively, it's
yeah.
You select not to enforce.
Select not to. Right. So there's also code blue, code blue in the winter that they'll suspend enforcement of the ordinance during those times. So.
Do we know how often our homeless shelters are full?
To my knowledge, I don't think we've had them full yet.
Okay.
Jay, do you know? I don't think we have had them all full.
I think, well, I think it depends on what we mean by full, because different shelters offer different kinds of services. So some people at Lantern House, for example, there's some people that are enrolled in case manager. They're part of the program where they stay in one part of the shelter. And then there's an overflow area where people can just stay overnight. So they can come in at like 9 p.m. and they have to be out by 6. There's a couple different definitions for full.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
And so we've given allowances to the Lantern House. If it's a code blue and it's really cold in the winter, they can open their areas that would not be approved for sleeping. So people have a warm place to stay and have access, whether they take advantage of them or not, to resources. But we can expand the capacity there, but it's got to be by the fire chief and our public safety group to say, this is a code blue, we need to look at this and do something a little bit different and just have temporary space at the homeless shelter. But that we've opened it and it's not been overwhelmingly received. We'll put it that way.
Or like, and I was just thinking, like the YCC could be totally full. It's one type of homeless shelter that we have, and then Lantern House would be another. So it'd be, I'm sure, I mean, I know that the city's very involved in all those meetings and conversations, so I think you understand the nuance, but I'm not sure if everybody in the public does. I guess my only, I mean, I have several conflicting thoughts about this ordinance. I certainly don't want the city to lose $1.7 million, because we know that we probably spend more than that working on this issue. But I do have some concerns. I mean, I'm just looking at the language from what it was before, you know, crossed out. And so, for example, in the verbiage, it says at the very end, you know, it lists all these things that you can't have in a public place. But it says, I guess at the end, I'm trying to figure out where to start. It says, forego shelter or camping or sleeping equipment to fail to remove the same from any such sheet for more than 5 minutes after being requested to do so by a police officer or citizen. So I think in the new language, it just says you can't leave things, this big long list that you can't have on public property, but then also that you can't leave things for longer than 15 minutes. And it doesn't really have that caveat about requesting to remove it. And again, you know, I'm not trying to be negative about it because I realize we have to have some kind of ordinance, but I just have a feeling, and I'm not trying to, if a citizen, we'll just focus on citizens for now, if a citizen saw me sitting in the park on a blanket for more than 15 minutes, I don't know, you know, are they going to ask me to pick it up, and am I required to do that, or is it only people that are using it that we deem to be unsheltered? And I just have questions about that. How does it get applied fairly? I'm not saying anybody individually in our departments or in our city would want to do anything negative to anyone, but it just is challenging to me to understand who it would be okay to allow to do things and who it wouldn't.
Yeah, so I think that's why. So there was actually two. So in that list of items, it's two or more of those items, which really I think it's trying to drill down on those that are camping in the public space and not those that are sitting on a blanket. I know that.
You know what I'm saying?
I know.
I mean, you might
I know
have
what
your
you're saying.
little shelter there with your kids, you know, and I don't know. It just
And
is
to
challenging.
defend Monty, I would
Oh,
say
I'm not
that's
saying Monty's doing anything negative. I'm just saying in general, this kind of ordinance worries me for that reason.
sure, and that's going to be, it's always going to be subjective, and that's part of the homeless coordinating committee is we kind of walk through some of these things and try to redefine it and get smarter about it. So if you've got a bunch of shopping carts and a tent set up and everything else, that's a little bit different than if you're sitting on a blanket having a picnic with your family. But you're probably not going to be doing that in the middle of January. So that's where our homeless advocates come in and will go. I mean, I can say without exception that our police department would go talk with them, bring the homeless advocates in, work through that. It's not going to be they roll in and say, you got to be out of here in 15 minutes. And
oh, I know. And I've definitely witnessed how they are talking with people in the park. I mean, it's right down the street from my house where a lot of this activity happens. I'm just trying to think through it and how policy sometimes can create inequitable situations for people. And I'm not trying to accuse a particular person or department. I have neighbors that are upset about these things happening in our park too. I'm just trying to think through it in the most humane way possible.
Yeah, and I'm glad the mayor brought up the homeless advocate coordinators because they're huge in this, right? This is I mean, just this last week, I probably talked to Anna 3 different times, and she's great to, you know, and what's great is I can say, hey, there's this, you know, we have this issue, and she knows them, you know, and she says, oh, we're trying to get them to this next process here, and I think that's great. There was one other question that back to the when it would be selectively non-enforced. In the new language of the ordinance, it talks about the chief of police will monitor all the Weber County homeless shelters. And so I think that's where that, you know, you mentioned, well, there's, you know, maybe this shelter offers and caters to a different group than this. And I think that's where that is handled. So.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the discussion. There's some issues to bring to light. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
Chair, I would make that motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-48.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie, second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-48. It's a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
No. And I just would like to explain it. It's passed, but I just want to make sure that we, have some notation that there was some concern. And I'm sure, everybody has similar kind of concerns about the horrible crisis that we're having for people living unsheltered in our community. I certainly serve on several boards that are working on the issue too. I just want to make sure people know that we're thinking other ways too. Okay, great. Well, up next is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. You can step to the podium and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Or if you're online on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand. And if you're on the telephone on the Zoom meeting, you would hit *9 so that we know that you want to speak. Come on up. Welcome.
Get this open. Hi, my name's Jean Evenden. I'm a longtime resident of Ogden.
I don't know if you might want to pull the mic up just a little bit so people online can hear you too.
Is that going to be better? How's that?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe better.
I'm here because I've seen that Mayor Caldwell intends to pull Ogden out of the Community Renewable Energy Act program. I've also seen in recent local candidate panel discussions that there's quite a bit of misinformation about this initiative and the work of the Community Renewable Energy Agency that Councilwoman Chair Chaburka sits on. It's my hope that the City Council can stay engaged about the facts of this program and not make any rash decisions to terminate the city's involvement. To begin with, Ogden has been a full participant up to this point and has invested over $70,000 of taxpayer money and staff time to shape the program. We're at the point we have been waiting for. The utility agreement, a major component of the program application, will be filed with the Public Service Commission later this year. Once the PSC approves the program, we will know more about the customer rates in time for each community to make an informed decision whether to adopt the ordinance and thus formally enter the program. To pull out of the program before we even know what the rates will be is not only a complete waste of my taxpayer dollars, but I think yours as well. Before the utility agreement is signed and the PSC has determined that before the agreement is signed and the PSC has determined what our rates will be, there's no reason to terminate our involvement. Secondly, I've heard a lot of concern expressed over the past few years about the impact of this program on the low-income members of our community. Know that this is being worked on. I've sat in on several of the agency board meetings and kept up with their meeting minutes for the past year. Their communication and low-income subcommittees are working diligently to assure that each community's outreach efforts are as extensive and complete as they can be and that low-income communities are accommodated. There are 3 programmatic strategies to low-income assistance that the agency board adopted last December. They are enhanced monthly bill credit, termination fee waiver, and an online donation platform. The enhanced monthly bill credit and termination fee waiver would apply to those qualified customers that are already enrolled in Rocky Mountain Power's low-income helpline program. In addition, the state's Home Energy Assistance Target, also known as the HEAP program, has proposed significant increases in electricity credits for low-income customers. Third, and as a reminder, any resident may choose to opt out of this program and continue to secure their energy through existing sources under the existing rate structure. This is a win-win for all citizens. And finally, Ogden City conducted a survey last year in which residents were asked a series of questions to determine their interest in renewable energy and whether or not they'd be willing to pay more for it. I had hoped to be a part of that survey, but I learned later that those of us who were classified as solar customers by Rocky Mountain Power were excluded from the survey by the
Sorry, you'll have to finish up. You can send the rest to us in an email if you'd like to.
Yeah, I was over about 30 seconds, so thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I would like to lift up Chair Chaburka's concerns with regards to the no camping ordinance 2023-48, specifically because it's not tight enough. Legally, it doesn't define who does what. There should be a piece in there that says that it should go through Anna's department, through OPD, and defining that. You would not buy a house without having your terms defined. And we need to legally define that. It's a big, huge loophole, open for interpretation, which is open for abuse. And I'm not saying, as Chair Chaburka did, that anything is wrong at OPD. They're fine officers, and the homeless outreach program is stellar. And I think we've made great strides. But remember, we need to leave everything better than we found it. 5 years from now, 2 years from now, y'all may not be here. How is that going to happen? How are people in the future going to execute this order? I believe you need to tighten it up, and I would recommend amending that to do so, to give more authority to OPD and define what that looks like. I, too, am very distressed about the fact that there is a letter existing to take us out of HB 411, CREA, whatever you want to call it. It makes absolutely no sense. You all did the most equitable and thorough survey that has ever been done in the history of Ogden, reaching out by census tract. And people said they wanted clean energy. And Utah receives more than 5 times the amount of coal-fired electricity than the U.S. average of 10%. And straight up, the impact of this can reduce carbon emissions by 45%. This is the single most impactful thing that you can do. And I will personally pledge to you, if everybody keeps bringing up this we're worried about our low income, I will personally pledge to you to fund an employee for 1 year at $50,000 or less to personally go through and reach out to every single person who makes less than $40,000 to make sure they're opt out. And it's not necessarily me, but I will take that because I know that O2 Utah has pledged to make that happen. I know that Weber State has pledged to make that happen. We can find people to opt folks out and to make sure that they are not negatively impacted financially. Stay in the program. We are the second largest city in there. We have a voice.
Thank you. Anyone else here?
Hi again, Teresa Bramwell. I just had to get up and talk about this homeless thing. My stomach is literally turning as we're having this discussion. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, today's problems were created by yesterday's solutions. And I know I, for one, have been a crime victim of this population that we are discussing today hundreds of times. And granted, it has gotten better since I started coming to these meetings, and if you've intervened on my behalf to make that happen, I appreciate it. There have been less of that kind of activity in my neighborhood since I have started being extremely vocal about it. But I want to know what the teeth are in if we're creating a solution to the problem, right? So the solution is camping on public property. The problem, a person in possession of my stolen property had the address of 2775 Wall Avenue. You can look it up and see where that is. But my concern about this issue is that the police are not given any teeth to take care of the problem. So they find a camper, they find somebody, or they find somebody that's broken into my building that's there on the property. What happens to them? Do they take them to jail? Do they release them to a homeless shelter that they walk in the door and then walk right back out because they don't want to be there because they can't do drugs while they're in the homeless shelter? I mean, the solutions that we're creating for this problem are not solving the problem, they're just moving the problem somewhere else. So if you're not going to allow the problem to exist in a public park, it's going to be in my house, or it's going to be in my store, or it's going to be in the neighbor's store, because the police have come to my property, found the individuals, the criminals creating the crime, and said, you just move along, you go to the next person's property because this lady doesn't want you on her property. So are we really solving the problem? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here? Step on it.
Hi.
Hi.
Sebastian Benitez again. Last time when I been here was April 18, and I come here to talk about the Birch Creek Street, and I request to reopen the traffic, the free traffic again in that time. And they say they closed because they are going to do the parking lot to Weber State University. The 13th Amendment protect the free circulation, and the Utah code, the Utah law protect the same thing too. And they amend in 2014, effective in May 12, 2015, the free traffic for the citizen for public purpose. And they put the regulation about the private property, you know, and they allowed to close the street to make some improvement or something like that. But they made that amendment to close temporary, like normal, to fix the tree or whatever, you know. But Birch Creek is closed for permanent. That did not allow the lot. And I understand the Planning Commission ignored the law and processed vote 3-5 to close Birch Creek, and that was straight to the mayor, and that was made the authorization to proceed the project building Weber State parking lot on both sides. Everything is done in one side and is closed with the metal gate and the free circulation, like the Utah law protect that one for every single. And just I want to remember you, Weber State University is not private, it's from the state, it's public and supposed to open. And many years ago, Taylor Avenue was closed already, and Mount Ogden was closed to the access to Weber State University. Now they are closing the last street to connect East Bench straight with the Weber State University. And I request to remove the metal gate and make free circulation for the traffic and for the people, a student. And they explained to me why they do it, but it's under the law. It's not by the law. And we need to fix that one like friendly, you know. And I come here, thank you for the extra time. I am coming here like talk like friendly, you know. We need that street open again, you know, and it's a beautiful parking lot there. But the gate have to remove, and I request that when I've been here 3.5 months ago talking about the same thing, and I know you ignored that situation, how the Planning Commission vote and do not come to the City Council and the public impact, you know. I am not the City Council, I ignore the process, but I am coming to request open the gate, remove the gate, and make free circulation like the Constitution allowed, and the Utah law protect that one. And thank you so much for your time. I hope that can fix it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, Travis Pate. I think the dynamic when I have seen the work session and some of the other amendments that have been made with regards to disposition of property and transference of property, I think it's pretty significant that as we now look at the Union Station property itself, that there be a higher standard, that administration can't just sell it once we buy it, or sell everything right around to the footprint of the building unless it comes to the council. Or I think a long-term lease revenue aspect would be a much better option than just what we've been doing. We have BDO and we look at the lease revenues that we're getting. Woohoo! We look at Wonder Block. Let's surrender an entirety of Wonder Block. We look at the IGA block. Let's surrender the entirety of the IGA block. We will have no control over anything that goes onto that property after we sell it. And I think that that's a pretty poor model. We have the entirety of the Ogden City Mall, now essentially the junction, and yet we own the property. And so we can have a little bit more latitude as to what goes on that. And so I think some of those dispositions of properties, that also one of the other thoughts that needs to be done is any time any public money, in addition to in excess of what we've bought it for, being reimbursed to the city, that we recoup it, that we get it into a revolving loan fund or some of those types of things, that we simply can say, here's what we did for the Union Square Phase 2, $1.3 million, just take it, have it, woohoo! Wait a minute, how about we put it out to bid? The Wonder Block the same way. If we were to build a building such as this one or restructure a building and seismic upgrade, we put it out to bid. And yet we're just turning over to a private developer, hey, build the parking terrace how you kind of want to do it, because in 30 years, just like the Ogden City Mall parking terrace, we'll just restructure and refinance and get more BDO money and restructure and do all the things that we need to do, because we didn't really get it to our specs. We didn't get it to our bid. You guys got a 5% handling fee or 10% or 15%, whatever percentage, to build the parking terrace for us. We could have saved the taxpayers how many millions of dollars by just putting it out to bid and not having hand some private developer a handling fee? Are we proper stewards of our money? I had suggested with EOS Fitness coming to town, there was a tenant improvement assessment. Not one person asked them, because they weren't here, if they had any other tenant improvement assessments from any other property in Utah. We simply said, no, here's $500,000. Do with it what you want inside your building. It's technically our building, but we'll just tear it out whenever, because we didn't really approve it. We didn't really need it. And none of that money went to the common areas. It's a 20-year-old building. They'll need to improve it. And Little Audrey's, meanwhile, went out of business. Our little store that kept trying, but here's a gift of $500,000 to EOS Fitness. And then you write it off on your taxes and then give it to your shareholders.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go online with Heath Sato.
Hello, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. First, thanks to everyone for supporting Pride Week for Ogden tonight. These days, there are way too many communities busy trying to restrict human rights. So your support for people to have the freedom to be their true selves and actually celebrate that truth is genuinely appreciated. Also, in the work session today, and tonight, I appreciated seeing some changes in the RDA developer selection process. I think it's a good start. I'd also like to see a final tally of what the project for where the cleaners was, the purchase price plus the cleanup price to the city minus whatever the developer paid for the land in the end. If we could get a tally on what that cost us, that'd be great. I'm ecstatic to see a project that is using some federal programs to create housing at 60% of the market rate. I would encourage more of that when we choose to help or even pay developers to create housing here. I'm also curious, speaking of the RDA, where is the Brown Ice Cream building? By contract, it's supposed to be finished, ready for occupancy in less than 4 months. We were initially told when they were selected that the developer was chosen without a public process because it'd make the blight go away more quickly. In the last 21 months since that property was transferred, the building has growing graffiti on it, and frankly, it looks more blighted than ever, so I don't see how that process is working. And on last thing about the RDA, did I miss the RDA property sale presentation that was at the end of the packet agenda? I didn't catch that. Did that get moved to next week? Let's see. The camping policy. I really appreciate Councilmember Chaburka's comments. I understand the state's made it necessary for us to pass this, but when we do, I want to be certain we are expanding our ways of helping the unsheltered beyond our current coverage of the issue. There's lots of valid reasons the shelters are not full, but that's a much larger discussion. Regarding Code Blue, I'm concerned how we're talking about this since as a time when I lost my place of my thoughts here. I'm concerned about how we're talking about this because they say we won't enforce the law during a Code Blue episode, but we scattered homeless encampments not long ago on the coldest night of the year when COVID was literally killing people inside the shelter. So I'm a little concerned when we say we won't enforce it at certain times, but we've behaved differently. And the CRA issue and wildlife rescue center issues, we need genuine updates and transparency on what's actually going on. The wildlife rescue still has to legally kill or legally let animals die until they get their permits from the city. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments online or here in the chamber? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Any comments or responses from the council?
I just have a quick comment, and in light of all the what's the secret sauce, I want to publicly say thank you to Travis. We were at the debate a week or so ago, and it was pouring down rain, and he ran out to his car to get an umbrella to help Bob and Marcia Harris out to their car. And I want to publicly thank you for that, because that's the secret sauce in Ogden. That's what makes us tick. And so I just wanted to thank you for that, because that was pretty awesome.
Sure. Any other comments?
Travis is an awesome man. So Sebastian's my neighbor, and he's asked me about this a couple times, and I don't know what the answers are. Can staff help me get some background, and I can. Okay, thanks. Whatever you can do to help arm me with that information, I could have a better discussion with my neighbor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Speaking of Travis, I was curious about his comments on the tenant improvement assessment money for EOS. So I also don't know if someone knows a little more about it, because I can't remember. But I'd appreciate also, Janine, if you would please help me find out. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's see. I'm just trying to see if there's anything I can respond to. Did you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe while you're looking at your list.
Yeah.
As it relates to Korea, I've been knocking on some doors and talking to some people, and you're right. There's misinformation and multiple answers on certain topics that's getting confusing. So that was something I relayed to Jennifer Bodine. I ended up knocking on her door, and she knows about as much as anybody about it. But that was something I expressed to her, is we need to make sure we are all singing from the same sheet of music, because we're starting to talk over each other on what is and what isn't. So anything you can do to help with that would be a huge help for decision makers too. Thanks.
Great. Any other comments? I don't think I have any based on this list. Mr. Sato asked for a whole bunch of different updates, which I don't have the information about these. I can tell you, though, that the last item on the agenda for the work session was just an informational item. So you can look at the, I'm guessing there's a link, though, to the one that's online, right? Because I think I looked at that one, too. So there's a link where you can go and see further information, yeah. It's not on this agenda, but yes, we can follow up with that. Yeah, okay, well, any comments from administration?
No, I think a lot of that's been addressed. I can say with the Korea, nothing's been submitted yet, so information coming out that we've said yes or no on any of that is absolutely incorrect. What we've agreed to do is spend money to do our due diligence, and we're taking our information from our city engineers and our partners with Rocky Mountain Power and everybody else, and then weighing that with what we charge in terms of utilities and everything else. And we've had conversations for years about this. So if anybody says we're just kind of a knee-jerk reaction to say, no, we don't think it fits, that's not accurate at all. And we have making a conscious decision to wait till some of the money and the conversations come out. And I've been meeting with the Utah League of Cities and Towns and a lot of the other mayors in the state to talk through that. So it's still a work in process. So anybody saying we've made a decision either way is that's not accurate from the administrative level. I don't know where that information is coming from. And I really do think that the camping ordinances and everything else are critical, and it's a little hard to have criticism for us not caring about our homeless and unsheltered community, because I believe we've done more than any other city in the state to mitigate and manage and try to thread the needle for what's in the public interest and what's in their interest, and how do we take care of that in a thoughtful and respectful way. And that's a dynamic issue. If any city in the entire United States of America has figured that out, let us know, because we're all in. But it is a really tough balance that we have worked on for a long time, and that $1.7 million is a lot of effort from our police department, from our fire department, and from our homeless advocates to say, here's what is actually happening. And a lot of the other cities along the Wasatch Front have taken our numbers and rebuilt their application process and everything else, because we do know what's going on and what we can help with, what we can't help with. You can't force people into that. It's just a dynamic balance that I tip my cap to our public services. I think they've dealt with it very empathetically and looking at the long term. And we've had Wayne Niederhauser, the chair of the State Homeless Coordinating Committee, come up, and he said on multiple occasions, you guys are the model we would hope that a lot of other communities would approach, because we don't reject it, we just try to find a fine balance with it. And a lot of other communities bust their people into Ogden because they say, they have the services there, we can't deal with it here, so let's just dump it on Ogden. And I do not think that is fair for Ogden citizens. The numbers for the Lantern House for a long time were more than 50% of the people that accessed services at the Lantern House were not just from Ogden City, they were not even from Weber County. And at some point there's a balance where we can say, this is what we can do, this is not fair at some point. And I do think that the homeless camping ordinance, where some people have recommended we open all of our public parks to free camping and no observation at all, that's the worst thing I think we can do for that community. I think having our advocates and some rules and requirements and everything else is the most humane approach to that. And people can disagree with that, but in talking with all of our public safety providers, that's what every single one of them have said, and I've seen that played out time after time after time, that they have been compassionate and reasonable and looked at that. It's not just giving the Heisman, if you will, to people and trying to kick them out. It's trying to give them options for an intervention, and that's what they need more than just a free place to camp and everything else. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to get out of the cycle they're in. And the only compassionate thing we can do is to put them in touch with resources, but to allow them, let them know that there are requirements and there are some things you're going to be expected to do. And so I will stand by that, and I appreciate the work. We have 2 full shifts, and all they do are chase homeless issues and try to give them access to resources. That's 2 full police shifts that aren't doing other public service work because they're that concerned about it. So that's something people can criticize me for, but that's something I stand by and I think is the most compassionate and reasonable approach. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks for that. Well, and I feel like I need to reiterate again, I wasn't saying anything about your administration or the people that work in our administration. Back to Angel's comment, we have a change coming in administration, so any rules we make now, we don't know how they'll play out in the future. And I do know that those advocates are funded by grant funds, so we don't know if the next administration will continue those funds. So I certainly applaud all the work that Ogden City has done. I think the state needs to give us more funding for what we do and for what we handle for the whole region, and even further, as you're stating, Mayor, definitely advocate for those services and the funds and resources to be here. I just have concerns about the future. We don't know what will happen. So, any other comments?
I would just add, we're open to solutions. Everybody can criticize everything that's being done. Anybody has good ideas, we're all ears for that.
Okay, if nobody else has any more comments, I'd be happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Heyer, second from Councilmember Nadolski to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.